On this episode of Industry Relations, Rob and I are joined by Jack Miller. Jack Miller is the CEO and president of T360, and they've just released the Real Estate Opportunity Report. Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast that's at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective, with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson. Hi, everybody. This is Greg, and I wanted to give a quick shout out to our newest sponsor, CoreLogic. There has never been a time when it's been more crucial for real estate agents to demonstrate their value to their clients, and CoreLogic has all the tools for them to do so. One Home has generated over 17 million unique users who are exploring listing and neighborhood data. Their invitation-only client portal has also amassed 2.3 billion listing views, and their new photo AI search helps turn clients' visual aspirations into reality. For agents on the go, there's MLS Touch, which is their top-rated real estate app in the App Store, which gives agents instant access to critical MLS data wherever they are, and also can be branded for collaboration as a client version. Next up is RealList. RealList gives agents expert level analysis of properties, which helps their clients make smarter decisions and also can help them with their lead generation efforts. All of this is underpinned by Matrix, the industry's leading MLS system. Currently, CoreLogic is rolling out Matrix 12, which will have a brand new interface that works perfect for mobile and desktop. Lots of great stuff happening at CoreLogic. Don't forget an update from your favorite rep, whether that's Rick, Todd, Kim, Lauren, or the rest of the crew, or visit their website. You can look at the link in the show notes. My thanks again for CoreLogic for sponsoring Industry Relations.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, the notorious Rob, as always, and the fabulous Greg Robertson.
Hello, Rob. Hey, Liege.
Hola, how are you?
All right.
Did you just call me my liege? I believe you did. I think I'd adapt that as my pronouns, you know.
Okay, well, there you go.
He liege.
You have to incorporate the bow in it, too.
The bow in it,
People
okay.
who are listening can't see the very stately bow that I give as well.
Yeah. So before we begin our actual program, I am curious, have you heard anything about our last program, which had nothing to do with real estate?
You know, I was going to look at the numbers to see if the views were much more or much less than before, but I hadn't.
I'm assuming it's much less and no comments because, prepping is not a topic that I think real estate.
I learned a lot. You know.
Have you started making changes?
No, I mean, I we typically have like a holiday party, which, you and Sonny are invited if you want to come down to SoCal.
Yeah.
And we have our neighbors there. So I was actually going to put more of a sign-in sheet so I can get people's,
There you go. All right.
I think we know pretty much everybody, but maybe get some contact information. So we'll try it that way.
Just remember 3 weeks of water, get some Life Straw,
right.
Get some, filtering equipment. But we're not here to talk about prepping. Clearly, we are not the right people to be talking about that.
We have other opportunities to talk about.
We have other opportunities. And thankfully, today, we actually have a very special guest with us. We are joined by Jack Miller, who is the CEO and president of T360.
Whoop, whoop.
Round of applause. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing great, and thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. And also, I get to watch you on YouTube a lot. It's really great to actually be here.
That's what he says now.
I know.
Here, Jack.
We're like the 60 minutes of real estate podcasting. So
I enjoy it. I love the murder board. I have a whole story to tell you guys about. I actually have a murder board in my house for real for some things that. Anyway,
right on.
That's a whole other conversation. I'll tell you. I'll save that one for.
Is this something that local law enforcement is going to want to hear about more, Jack? Or
no, not local law. It's actually it's historical. It's World War II history. We're actually trying to track down a mystery and I have an entire wall in one of our rooms dedicated towards solving.
Do you have your kids help you out with that stuff?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter helped me do the first one I did when we did the whole Sitzer Burnett thing, and we had a blast doing it.
Yeah,
it was fun.
It's like what you see in the movies, with the strings and the
red string. Yeah. I got the red string is here, baby. It's ready to be wrapped.
You gotta have it.
All right, so listen, let's dive in because you guys have obviously just written, and I believe you're about to release or have released the opportunity report.
Yeah, we just released it, so it's available now.
Right.
Go to theopportunityreport.com. It'll take you over to our real estate news download page for that. It's a free report. It's about 110 pages, I think, and
Yep.
we so it's there. It will be shipping as a print version. It's going to be it is a complimentary report that we ship to a number of industry leaders that are on our existing Swanepoel Trends mailing list.
Yep.
And also, I think the first 1,000 orders of the Swanepoel Trends report are receiving a complimentary print copy as well. So,
Right.
So we'll have probably a few thousand print copies in circulation and then available for on-demand printing. So,
and we'll put that link in the show notes. And then I would also say, he says it's 100 pages, which it is, but it's not like a dense thing, right?
No,
so it's really easy to get through. So I'd recommend everybody.
Right. And for transparency, we've already kind of received a preprint copy. We've reviewed it a little bit, preparing for the show, and there's some real interesting stuff in it.
We got some questions.
Why don't we start with? Tell us a little bit about the opportunity report.
A little history is important to put it in context. 10 years ago, T360 and Stefan Swanepoel, my partner and executive chairman, were asked to do a comprehensive risk analysis of the industry by the National Association of Realtors, and it was a paid project to go do the research. But where we said, look, we're going to go do the research and we're going to put it together. This isn't an AR thought piece. This is a T360 piece. So we're going to talk to everybody and distill it and put it into a report. And that became they didn't know it was a danger report when they hired us to go do the research. And that report involved in-person interviews with about 50 to 60 CEOs actually in their offices. So Stefan painstakingly got on a plane and flew to everybody's offices and met with them in person, spent an hour and a half with them. And then we did some focus groups and some survey work. So that was what was done 10 years ago. Probably the most interesting thing about that is in the forward of the opportunity report, we had ChatGPT analyze the danger report from 10 years ago and say, hey, of all the dangers, how many of them actually have occurred and to what degree?
Right.
And as a collective, it gave us an 83% score, 83%, which is pretty wild. And some of it was 100%. Like we had one on like regulatory action in real estate and it's like 100%. That's and the masses of marginal agents damaging the reputation of the industry. Again, very high percentage there that obviously is played out.
Can I ask you a question real quick there,
Yeah.
Jack? I mean, so to me, like when the trial came out, right? The danger report was referenced on a lot of places, right?
Yes, it was.
And then also famously, it was also let know that your, list of the most successful brokerages in the country was used as a measure of who had to pay what. I mean, have you gotten, and this is a little bit inside baseball, but that's our crowd. But I got to imagine the shit you must have got for the danger report being so referenced. And then of course the brokers that were on that list going, why did I give them those numbers? I mean, what was any backstory, anything you can tell our listeners?
I'll give a little
give us a little bit of something here, man.
A little bit of something. Just for everybody listening, we had nothing to do with that. That was like we found out when all the documents dropped that they had used our reports, and it was sort of like a backhanded compliment. Like, you guys have really the most accurate reports and they're not perfect. By the way, they're not perfect. We're aware, every year we find 2 or 3 brokers that are out there. They're doing a lot of sales volume that they haven't submitted their numbers before, or they're not on anybody else's list either. And so we find people regularly. So they're not perfect. I'm not claiming they're perfect. And none of these lists are perfect, but they just picked ours. And so it's a backhanded compliment. Like, yeah, gee, thanks. So it feels really good that we created a good report, and then it gets used against our friends and partners, peers, allies, all that. It's like,
are you publishing that again?
Oh yeah, we're going to publish it again. Yeah, we're not. No, we're not. So
what do you think the participation level is going to be in that, though, Jack?
So I don't know. And so I am an optimist, which I think you have to be in order to be in this industry for as long as I've been in it. And I think that the marketing benefit of showing that your company is growing and strong for many will outlay or will overrule the risks of being named in litigation. But I fully understand that there's going to be some people that don't share their numbers anymore going forward. I imagine that's true. But I would just say, look,
the private companies are like Howard Hannes will be like, we made $8 million last year.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly. Rob nails it.
And I just have to say, like, so when that thing dropped, I reached out to NAR and I said, you have to get these people in a room who are not covered and explain what happened, because there was not a plan to do that. So I reached out, and then I personally contacted every single brokerage that was not covered. If we had their contact information, I reached out to their management team. I emailed them. I said, hey, NAR is going to host a meeting in Chicago. You should get there. Yeah. Just to have a conversation. Like, you just need to know what's going on and to give them an opportunity. So that,
did we cover that?
What also in the industry has been known as red wedding is what I think is what they call that.
We covered that meeting, Greg, but all right. So get back to the report.
Sorry. I just had to go there. I'm sorry, Jack.
Yeah. No, all good. Yeah. So anyway, so we produced that report. That report, yes, was used in the court case. People wanted to determine if it was a collusive element. Of course, was not. We felt, given we really wanted to do an update in 2019, and reached out to NAR and said, we'd like to do an update on this. We think it's important. But of course, because of the legislation or the court cases, they said, well, we don't really want to do an update right now. We don't think it's a good idea. Fine. That's fine. When the case was settled, then we put it back on our front burner and said, I think now's the time when the industry is going to need some guidance. And in a time when there's a lot of pessimism, historically low transaction unit volume, challenging interest rate conditions, all these new rules you got to follow. We wanted to give people, this is actually a time of opportunity. This is a time where when things are difficult for the entire industry, if you look back at the great financial crisis and all the things that came out of that, the companies that leaned in and developed and worked on their business and made changes and were aggressive, those are the ones that came out and became some of the titans of today and some of the larger companies of today. And so we wanted to put a different spin on it and say, it is an opportunity. Let's not waste a good crisis. Let's use it. So let's call it an opportunity report. That's not a danger. The danger has happened. The danger has happened. And now we need to talk about how we can build forward for the next 10 years and what people should focus on. Some of the stuff in this report is right in people's windscreen right now. Some of it's going to take a few years to unfold. And are the opportunities for us, over the next 2 or 3 years.
All right. And I think one of the promises we made, and it makes perfect sense for us, is you've already been on the, our friends, the Real Estate Insiders podcast with James and Keith.
Yes.
And I think they talked a lot about agents, which is Section A.
Yes.
Which makes perfect sense because given what they do in their business, we are industry relations. So I think Greg wanted to just skip over all the agent-related stuff. We can talk about it at some point.
Yeah.
Dive right into B, organized real estate. Floor is yours, fabulous Greg Robertson.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So a couple things. So it's interesting. The report, I guess this time was sponsored by homes.com.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not NAR, right?
Yeah. NAR, we like I said, we had reached out to them and they said, not for them. And because it's a substantial body of work and we wanted to do big print distribution, we're like, we need a title sponsor. We need somebody that's going to come in and underwrite this research.
Yeah, no, I read Andy Florence wrote the forward to this, which was, did you proof that?
Yes, we did proof it. It is a sales pitch. He is staking out his position as to what homes.com value proposition is. And I get that. He's unapologetically a self-billionaire salesman. And so he's going to tell you, what he thinks. So I have thoughts about the portal market. I've been in the industry for a long time, and I understand the position they're taking, and that's fine.
Two harmful portals trying to Uberize agents.
Yeah.
Today, nobody wants to work with an agent with less than 40 hours experience.
Yeah.
He's paying. I guess he can put that in there. That's kind of interesting. But what I like, as you already said before, is that the theme opportunity.
Yeah.
And in the report, the way it's structured, you kind of give some data and then you have this perspectives section, right?
Yeah.
Whose viewpoint is that? Because there's different
So
ones.
it's good. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. So we interviewed a little over 50 leaders for this report. And so the context and the opportunity really came from those interviews in terms of us synthesizing what people are saying. And in some cases, we had very different points of views. Like the CCP, obviously, we talked to a number of people. There were some different viewpoints expressed about CCP. And there's a few places where that was true. There was not like a clear, here's what everybody's thinking. There are some places where I think it was actually pretty clear and where everybody was saying very similar things and our distillation was clear. And then the perspective section is T360 providing some perspective on the issue from our.
Okay, so that is an editorial you guys are making, right?
Yeah.
I liked actually the way you framed the CCP. You had a kind of a quadrant, and you're basically said, I mean, more transparency equal less lawsuits, and less transparency equals more lawsuits. And like, what quadrant do we want to be in? And I thought that was a very good framing of that topic without really going into too much of everything else.
Yeah. And I also want to emphasize there's what people that we interviewed thought, there's what Stefan / T360 perspective, and there's my perspective. I have my own opinions about things, and it isn't, I think because we're about a 40-person company, we have a robust debate about many issues at this company. And there's some where we go, yeah, I think T360 has some guidance on these particular areas that we've come to a perspective that we can share as a company. And then there's some there where I'd say there's still healthy debate happening. I'd say CCP, there's still healthy debate happening even with our own company. Although I do have a perspective. I think Stefan has a perspective. So,
So naturally, I'm going to ask you what your perspective is. But one thing I just want to point out in this section is great job overall. But the one thing that was a little bit missing, because it relates to every other part of the section B, right? Which has to organize real estate. I felt like you guys probably should have addressed the fact that the lawsuits are not coming from consumers. They're coming from the Department of Justice. They're coming from Top Agent Network and PLS. The lawsuits are not about transparency or lack thereof. The lawsuits are about stifling competition with the MLS. Right.
I mean, Sitzer Burnett came from consumers, right? I mean, it was the class action suit from consumers.
Sitzer Burnett did, but I mean, clear cooperation policy lawsuits are all about the lack of competition with the MLS, right? Not about transparency, lack thereof. In other words, given that the rest of some of your opportunities you point out, like divorcing the MLS Realtor Associate, doing a three-way agreement, it would have been good. It would have been cool if you guys focused a little bit more about simply the lack of competition between MLSs. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's an opportunity and an issue that it's going to happen, and that would be an interesting thing to have sort of discovered.
I think we did in somewhat in terms of saying that MLSs need to move to more data, professional companies, that agents need to have options, and like that. That is the competitive.
That's kind of what I meant. So when you look at the other sections, it sort of really leans to that. It would have been good, I think, to point out that the lawsuits around CCP are about lack of competition between MLSs or with MLSs.
Yeah.
So, but that's
I think it's a fair comment. Yeah. I also think CCP is so tied up with the consumer concern as well. It's hard to unentangle.
And brokerage, right?
It's hard to unentangle it from that.
It's tied in with everything, but So all right. So what is your personal take? Like, what do you think CCP? What should happen with CCP?
Well, personally, we have built an incredible system for consumers from a user experience perspective and from a market transparency. Like I can go right now and see everything in the Austin market. I don't have to hunt it down. I don't have to spend all that time. And my concern is that is at risk. Now, I don't think that is CCP perfect. No. There's maybe other ways to do this that respects the privileges of the broker and of the agent and how they want to work. At the same time, I think there is an exchange of value. When you say, look, I have an exclusive listing agreement, I get paid no matter how this gets sold, right? Who benefits from that? The listing broker and listing agent. That's who benefits from that. The consumer really doesn't benefit from that. The seller doesn't even really benefit from that. If somebody else could bring them an offer and they didn't have to pay this person. So the person who benefits from that and the value exchange should be for consumer benefit. Hey, I have an exclusive listing agreement. I get paid no matter what, no matter how this thing gets sold. Well, then you should need to exchange something with the public. And that public exchange is, here is the information about this property. Now, if you really, really want to sell something, you're like, this is a sensitive situation. There's a divorce. It's a cop. It's a whatever. Okay, well, don't market it then. Like, don't pretend like you cannot have your cake and eat it too, because I believe that exclusive arrangement necessitates some value that is given for the public good. And listen, I ran a great pre-MLS marketing program when I was a broker. Great. I had a Twitter feed called Pre-MLS Austin. We did this awesome pre-MLS marketing. We were a little boutique company.
Ooh,
I know. But this was like 2010.
Man.
It was
Jack Miller is the reason why clear cooperation policy was put into place. That guy Jack is doing stuff in Austin. He's killing us. It's not true.
I don't even want to get. I was a very novel marketer back in those days. But we did a lot of our pre-MLS program. This was before CCP or anything. We were really aggressive about it as a boutique real estate firm, and it was a value proposition. So I understand how a broker wants to say, look, this is a marketing asset and I'm going to use the heck out of it. But I also think there's a fairness issue about the exchange of value for the exclusive listing agreement. And I think on balance, we need to give something to consumer. And I believe we are at risk of destroying the best user experience in consumer real estate in the world, if we don't
Let me ask you something.
Yeah, what's that?
Suppose a rule, say the FTC, DOJ, who we know are involved in the clear cooperation policy debate, right, with their filings. Suppose a rule were created, say the FTC comes in and promulgates a rule that says, hey, brokers, you don't have to put anything into the MLS. We think clear cooperation policy is bad. Get rid of it. However, you are required to put your listing into one of the three major portals. Does that not meet your exchange of value? Because now every buyer will be able to see what is being offered in exchange for the exclusive listing.
You're giving me a hypothetical that I haven't.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, you haven't given me a chance to think through, but just off the top of my head, I'm not comfortable with the government playing kingmaker with portals and saying they should win that fight.
And portals are
libertarians
brokers.
Forever, brother.
And also, the way it's structured, portals are now brokers, right? So you're really giving another broker a preferential treatment.
Greg, you got to get off this portals and brokers shit. They're not brokers. You keep pushing that they're going to become brokers.
They are until we come up with some other kind of classification. That's what they are.
They're brokers just because they want access. I'm just, in other words, you're right. Like the challenge with all of this has been balancing brokers' rights with public access, right? Because the great benefit of clear cooperation policy, no matter how it came about, no matter the motivation, the great benefit is that it tends to just make sure that all buyers know what's for sale.
Yeah, and I think if you mechanically go down the path of what happens if people are allowed to decide, like, I'm just not going to put it in the MLS, which I've got a whole narrative on MLS value as a marketing vehicle, which I'll share with you in just a second.
Sure.
But if you go down that path, where you arrive at is a destination I don't think people want to be at, where it's like, oh, I have to go to the 3 or 4 big brokers in my market and set up an account on their website and look for their listings there. I can't look for their listings in these other places that are convenient to me, right? So I think you end up, and that doesn't feel good. That feels like a lot of work we're putting on the consumer and on the agents.
Sure.
And is I think clearly not a better experience, right? And now we're not really cooperating as an industry to help each other sell people's properties. And then on the flip side, you go, well, let's talk about the value of the MLS as a marketing tool. This one I get this question all the time, guys. People come and say, well, now that there's no compensation in the MLS, so it has no value. And I'm like, what, are you crazy? Are you an insane person?
Then I guess we're going to debate, because I think there's no value.
No, well, I think this is one where if we could get a steak dinner in play here, I'm all about it, because I think you're wrong. But because listen, I can go for a monthly fee, a software subscription service fee, and I can put a listing somewhere where it's going to hit thousands of consumers' inboxes.
Yep.
For nothing. I'm not in a bid market with Google or Facebook or Zillow. I'm not in a bid market. I'm not having to bid for attention to get people to look at my listings. I've got it on subscription. It's like the postal service. I don't pay more for the stamps. I pay the same as everybody else. MLS is the same way. So it's a low cost, hyper efficient, super connected way to get in front of a bunch of consumers. And that's just the marketing benefit. I'm not even talking about historical legacy data, sales data, comps, like all that additional value. I'm not even talking about it. I'm just saying pure 101 marketing benefit. Do you want to be in a bid market for consumer attention? Or do you want to be in a flat rate?
Ask how much homes.com is paying for that. How about $1 billion they're paying.
Right. And that's a choice. Look, we could make that choice and say, look, we would rather give a lot of money selectively to a few different players. And that's a valid choice. I see lots, there's places where that's valid. We could decide to do that, or we could say, you know what, we have this incredibly efficient option that gets it in front of a lot of consumers that we just subscribe to. And it's like, it really comes down to that. Do you want to be bidding for consumer attention, or do you want a subscription service where you're going to get it in front of a lot of people? And I think that it is part of the brilliance of the North American MLS system that is the envy. It's why other countries are interested in what we're doing.
Yeah, but the other thing I think that a little nuance to that too, Jack, is that you also are putting in front of the people that sell those things.
Correct.
Right away. Right. The agent to agent marketing is another huge component of that too.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of both. I don't know.
Is...
I look at Rob. I mean, Rob's face is kind of like, I think you might have got a little bit of body blow.
You guys are just talking the same conventional wisdom that's been going on for 40, 50 years. The thing that I agree. And again, this is not the episode. We should have Jack back for an episode to debate about this.
He's not prepared yet, Jack. You kind of wounded him. He's not really prepared to go into this battle.
I'm all right, fine. Let's do this thing. So here's the thing. As I put, the reason why Jack, I mean, you consult with brokerages, right? How are they doing margin-wise?
I mean, we did a study with Account Tech recently. We looked at 100 brokerages that had their books are in pretty good shape.
Right.
About a third of brokerages right now in the market situation we're in are not profitable. So there's 2/3 of them that are, and profitability ranging from 0 up to 10%. And
there are brokers making 10% profit margins.
Yeah. Cool. Not many of them, but there's a whole lot. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty. That's if you look at the pie chart, we've got a slide on it.
When I look at, so let's just talk about the top 5 brokerages: Anywhere, Compass, EXP. EXP is the most profitable. What's their margin?
It's not 10%. I think their last quarterly was like negative 0.1%.
Right. So. Here's the thing. So if I'm a large broker,
they're growing.
Rob, I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the rest of the industry.
I know, but here's what I'm getting at. When you talk about the MLS as like this amazing marketing channel to get in front of the millions, but the marketing costs are being paid by the agents, and as a broker, I'm getting murdered. My profit margins are non-existent. No, and it's because the MLS makes it possible for small brokers to operate. And we know this because CCP, when like CMLS or NAR, all the defenders of clear cooperation policy, what they say is, if we don't have clear cooperation policy, then the large brokers, right, will use this exclusive inventory to crush the little guys. Everyone knows this to be the case. What I'm saying then is, okay, the MLS no longer guarantees compensation. What's in it for Anywhere? What's in it for Home Services, EXP, all these big guys to continue to support the system?
Again, the market is the way it is now. And the market is going to turn. I mean, it's hard to kind of imagine that, but you're talking about in a market where it is a buyer's market, they're going to run home to mama, right? This is just, you're looking at some situation now where maybe because of low inventory that the guys that have the most. But
by the time the market shifts that, I will have eliminated every buyer broker out there. Then what? Every buyer just going to work for me or the other 3 big guys. Then what?
And you're going to be wishing you had some sort of cooperative later on.
Maybe.
I think, Rob, it's the normal debate that you and I have had over many, many, many years, where you see the little loophole that would cause a rapid shift over into a massive set of change. And I just don't think it's going to change that fast. And I think the big companies do get value benefit from the MLS. I really do. And I think their agents get so much value benefit from the MLS. They'd rather pay their MLS dues than they would figure out how to market via other mechanisms in mass, because it would just be very expensive. Now, is consolidation going to happen? Of course. We have that in this. The opportunity report talks about that as a major opportunity for brokers.
Sure.
It's a major opportunity for MLSs. Like, there should be consolidation. There are too many small, weak, and I'm pretty sure
there should be many things. And that's why I love your opportunity. So moving on, you have listed a whole bunch of other things that I'm applauding, because like MLS and realtors are separate. Okay, I've been on that bandwagon.
Oh yeah, Rob was like a heretic. I'm like, back in the day, and like now he's actually in print with you guys. I mean,
exactly.
I jumped out of it as well.
But so having said that, here's my question. Talking about that one specifically.
Yeah.
When you say separate MLS organization, realtor association, obviously I've been trying to do that for 2016. Do you think things have changed where you guys, that's actually realistic now?
I think.
And if so, what? What has changed?
What has changed? So what has changed principally is now I do not have to be a member of that MLS in order to get compensated. Right now, the rules are different, where I write my buyer agreement with my buyer, and I can go shopping, and I can choose how I participate. So now the MLSs really have to earn my subscription dues if I find it valuable to participate. Right. We're putting them. This is a good thing. This is putting the MLS into a competitive marketplace where they're rewarded for the value they create for their subscribers, not that you have to engage with them to get paid at all. And so I think that's a good outcome. It's one, I think, Rob, you and I get on the same side of that and say, we're both capitalists. We both believe in the free market. I think you believe in a much freer market than I do, but I think we both believe in the free market as a principle, and that will end up with better, more competitive MLS services. And it's now we have these MLSs that are already big and already have competitive services that will be able to say, hey, look, we're going to start letting you can use us in these territories now. And I think that's a good thing.
You go a little bit beyond that, and two things here. I mean, I love the vibe, the opportunity report, right? And you make a statement here, and I think this is in the perspectives thing. So maybe you can call me out if I'm wrong here. But
sure.
Here's the quote: "The future of the real estate industry lies with the MLS, and now is the time to lead." Right now, that's a very bold statement, right? In the environment that we always hear is like the MLS is dead or it's dying, right? But it is in the vibe of your opportunity report as far as being opportunity, or really, are you just kind of using some wordplay? It's like the future of the real estate industry lies in the MLS. Now is the time to lead, or else, right? I mean, did you leave off the or else, or do you really believe that the future? I mean, you're saying something again. Everybody's writing off the MLS. Oh, the MLS is, compensation went away, cooperation went away. In here, the quote is the future of the real estate industry lies with the MLS. I mean, that's a big, bold statement there, bro.
So keep in mind, we talked to 50 leaders. There was a section of them that were brokers. There was a section of them from MLSs, some very smart people. They're all in the back. Rob, you were interviewed for this. We had a number of people. Greg, you were interviewed for this report, right? Yep. So we had interviews, and while some said, hey, the MLS has got, it's got some issues, consistently what we heard is the MLS is valuable. And the MLS is a cornerstone piece of organized real estate in our country and the way that we operate today. And
is that T3 statement? The future of the real estate industry lies with the MLS. Is that T3?
I don't know. I need to look and see where it shows up in the report, because again,
it shows up an opportunity. It shows up an opportunity.
Yeah. Then if it's opportunity, then that's the perspective of the people that we interviewed.
Okay.
But I would say I believe it is true that MLS leaders have an opportunity right now to lead, and that they can create an environment that continues what we've been doing so well, which is providing a reliable source of data for transactions to happen in a understandable way in this industry. And that now's the time to show up and do that. Now's the time to show up and represent.
So
you say that a little bit of like.
Hold on. I just have a question, Jack. Like, why do you think they'll be allowed to lead this time? What's changed that they'll be allowed to lead? Because typically, and you know this as well as I do, Greg and I both worked with many MLS leaders who know what they want to do, where they want to take it. They try to lead. And the broken governance from the Realtor Association always fucks them up. So in other words, are you saying
that's why one of the opportunities?
I know. So the issue is, can they take advantage of the opportunity until the other one's done? Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, these
This is
things
kind of
all
an
go
all or
together.
nothing.
No, these things all go together. Like
Right.
you have to unconstrain the MLSs that are going to become more powerful, provide better services, grow, do all those kinds of
Right.
things. They need to be unconstrained. And
Right.
some of them have been, but it's been a slow and painful process. So part of this opportunity report is to say, if you want to have good MLS and data services from this industry, you have to let these data businesses run. You have
Of
to let them
course.
function.
Of
You have to
course.
let them. Otherwise, they will be outcompeted by other forces, right? They'll be outcompeted by something somewhere. We've been talking about it for a long time in this industry.
Right. But that's my thing. We've been talking about it for a long time in the industry. And we've
This
known this
industry
for a
has.
This
long
is
time.
pre-lawsuits,
And,
right? I mean,
Yeah, this is.
and
this
Realtor
is proper
Associates have proven
data first.
very unwilling to do any such thing. So it's like, so it almost feels like to me, at least Section B, I don't know about Section A because we're not talking about Section A. Section B feels a little bit like an all or nothing proposition. There are all these opportunities, but because they're so interlinked, the industry actually needs to do all of them. Is that a fair statement or
I
no?
think that's. I think
it could
there's.
be regional. It could be regional.
So I think you could take this report as an organized real estate leader and you read it from the perspective of your organization and say,
Right.
what are the areas where we can make traction in these opportunities that are presented? Because they're not all the same, depending on your view from a state, a local, a national,
Right.
an MLS, a regional MLS, a small MLS. Like they're going to show up differently for you depending on where you sit.
Right.
And you're not going to, and from that perspective, they're not all or nothing. They're going to be what's accessible to you and how
Right.
can we move. You're not going to get the entire industry to do all the same thing at the same time. Like that takes the settlement. That was the only thing I've seen where it's like, okay, everybody's now doing the same thing at the same time, or at least trying, right? That's the closest we've gotten to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
So
is
before
direction. It's direction.
before we leave the kind of MLS stuff, I mean, one of the things also, you kind of talk about the MLS, the value proposition of an MLS, but you still, and I see this a lot, and what you said before about the value of an MLS from a
Right.
cooperation side, I didn't really read that in this report. You talked about like, let's add more data, do migration patterns. I mean, I think there's still a lot of people that want to focus on the data compilation, Rob included, and
Yeah.
not really look at these other things. I wish that there was what you just went into that before that little rant would have been part of that value proposition that you put in here instead of just so everybody gets always so data centric here
That's
when
true.
there is more there, right?
That's true.
So, I mean,
And I think that's somewhat a
just that.
reflection also of everybody that we interviewed. That I think many of the people we talked to, they're kind of focused on what's next for the MLS in terms of as a product, as a data service, as a data offer. And I think there's an assumption that like the cooperative value is understood. Like, hey, we're using because we interviewed Leo, we interviewed all these folks that talked about that, but that wasn't their focus. That wasn't what they were doing.
Clearly, fabulous Greg Robertson, you and I need to do a debate episode once we've allowed our guest to speak his mind. Because cooperative value, are you saying that there would be no cooperation without the MLS? Are you seriously suggesting that?
No, I'm not. Come on, Rob. This is
no, you're not. No, Jack, you're
exactly
not. Greg, I'm talking to Greg right now.
Yeah.
You're not. Greg.
Okay.
I mean, brokers are just going to cooperate with or without the MLS.
I'll put it this way. I went to a gathering of Eagles once, and Ron Peltier was the keynote speaker of this, right? And he got up on stage and he said, I like this conference, but, when you say gathering of Eagles, you have to think about that. I think that's a good metaphor because an eagle can be a representative of, something bold, something majestic, whatever else. But also, there's a dark side to that, to those kind of things, the talons and the competitiveness and how we can rip each other apart as well. Right. So I think, yeah, maybe, but at the end of the day, these guys are competitors. Right. And without something there to kind of bind them together, and it has been cooperation and it has been compensation. I don't know, left to their own devices, man, who knows how ugly it gets. Right. So will there be some cooperation? Sure. But I mean, I still think it is a capitalistic society. And
Greg, I promise you and I will debate. I do want to let Jack kind of get a little deeper into the report. And I did have a question.
Well, I just want to do a check-in with Jack. Is this, I mean, is this, I know you had a thing with James and Keith. Is this
Very
going
different
okay
than
for
James
you?
and Keith. I
Yeah,
get
it's very different. It's very different. Well, this is kind of the fight club of real estate podcasts, right?
Welcome to 60 Minutes. All right. So, moving on to the Realtor Association, there are three main
Oh, I love
opportunities
this.
that you
Yeah.
guys pointed out, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of, because you brought it up, like depends on where you sit as a leader. I'm like, okay, let's say I'm a CEO of a local Realtor Association. All three of these seem like horrible, bad things that I'm going to do my best to fight. The three are: one, get rid of your MLS; two, do away with the three-way agreement; and the third one was must you streamline and unite. I think.
Yeah.
Talk
Yeah.
to me about those three
So
opportunities.
I think they all come from the perspective of the people we interviewed and from our perspective about the market, right? The There's been a persistent lack of value, I think, that people have felt from many local associations, where it's like you're not doing enough things for me, or you're only here because you are a gatekeeper for the MLS. Like, I'm not
No
saying
question.
anything out of school. I think
Of
this
course.
is that there's and by the way, there's many local associations that do great work, that are well respected, that provide good leadership, good training, good local advocacy. So
Yeah,
it is a
Austin being an example all the time.
yeah,
Louis
Austin's a
Shanaberry
good
does a
example.
great
There's
job.
many there's many that do a great job. So I'm not trying
Yeah.
to run down the local association. The point is that when and Rob, this is like your drama.
Yeah,
You
this is
can
my
beat it,
thing. 2016.
right?
Like,
It's like the association having value independent of the MLS subscription requirements, right? And that's not a. There's a lot of things in here that are not a new thought. That is not a new thought. That is something, and it's to say that if we're not prepared for that, then what will happen is, in this new context where now we have choice, now we have a lot more choice, and there may be even more choice coming. We may be in a situation where they say, look, you can't have any requirements around these, membership and that kind of stuff. That it gives the market-based thinking a much higher priority, or should, for associations, and they should be thinking about what am I doing? What's the value I'm providing?
sure.
And how am I conveying that value to association members? And I'm confident enough that there are people that do it well,
Yeah.
that we just need more of those. We need to grow
So-
those that do it well.
But here's my question, like around that. No, you're right. But like I said, this feels like a little bit of an all or nothing thing. But with Realtor Association specifically, what I wonder about is this an opportunity where you're saying to, like I said, to the local associate exec, right? This is an opportunity. If you do these things, you're going to emerge stronger, more successful than ever. Or is this more of this is going to happen whether you want it or not? So you might as well kind of get ahead of the curve, because either way, in other words, either way, the association, the MLS will get divorced. Either way, because brokers and agents are going to vote with their feet. Either way, you have to streamline and unite, because
Or the DOJ is going to step in.
or the deal, somebody, right? Or because the small associate, you guys don't provide enough value, so it's going to happen either way. The three agreement is going away, whether you like it or not. So you might as well just kind of get ahead of it. Is that kind of the suggestion?
We have always been on the side of lean into change, because when you lean into change and you colonize the future, that's how you win. That's how you maintain or grow or do anything. So it's not a threat. It's just the market is what the market is, and people will continue to have options that are now in our new context. There will be more options, and so the people that submitted their thinking to the report, and our perspective is lean into those changes. Let's make them, because we're going to go there anyway, right? In one form or another. We don't know how it's going to happen. Could be 5 years, could be 10 years. Don't know.
Final question, and then I'll turn it over to Greg. The final question is, in the associate world specifically, you and I both know that the locals and states are very, very limited and restricted as to what they can do without NAR allowing them to do it. Because again, if you violate certain things, you lose your charter, etc.
Right.
So is all of this really is this possible? Is this doable without NAR agreeing to this? Or is the thought that this is going to make NAR leadership agree to this?
Well, I don't think those are the opportunities are for the entire context. So we have, we do some pretty bold stuff, like, hey, NAR's board should formally resign. Like that's a big statement, right? So it is to say the industry as a whole needs to look at the way that associations are set up and governed and decide how they want to move forward. And these are a set of opportunities where you could decide to move forward with these to the best of your ability that you can. Now, NAR does have a big role to play because of those agreements, but they can't stop a local association from saying, "Hey, we're gonna drop our membership. We're gonna go get insurance a different way. We're gonna do things." People can decide to do that, and and that can happen. This is to say, why don't we collectively decide to do this and move in that direction so that everybody has a strong value proposition, state, local, and national. And is the world going to look very different? Of course. Let's just move there together.
Yeah.
Over to you, sir.
So 2 things, and I thought Rob was going to go here because one of the things that you say here, which I thought was amazing in a sense, about associations of what they need to do, and I'll quote here: "Cultivate the future of real estate with a new modern professional." So to me, that's a little bit interesting. And Rob and I have had this discussion before. We're like, so whose job is this? Is this the association's job to recruit modern professionals? This is the broker's job. You're putting it squarely, saying it's the association.
No, that's not true.
You're
That's
positing.
Not true. It's in all of the sections. So there is in each of the sections, we talk about that. And we even have a section for the state regulators and the licensing authorities to say, hey, you guys, so this isn't it's your job, it's your job, it's your job. This is our job collectively as an industry. Like brokers need to, like all the stuff in the broker section, it's like we need to up our game in terms of the level of professionalism and quality and training and our ability to explain our services and all those things. At the association level, same thing. At the state regulator level, agency level, like you guys need to improve the requirements and make it tougher. I mean, Texas, listen, I'm from here, so I'm more familiar with what we do, but I also know we have the most required mandatory hours of education. I still don't think it's enough, right? You have to do a certain number of transactions even to get a broker's license here. Now that's been inching up. They've taken the requirements up. And I think that's and Indiana is another good example of a state that is increasing its requirement. There are many places that are saying, hey, maybe we should be treating this job a little bit more professionally. And I think it's collectively, it's no one party's job. It's not the association's job. It's not the state's job. It's not the broker's job. All our jobs.
Yeah, I'm focusing on the B section. So let's talk about associations still. Let's go up though. This is what I thought was amazing also. NAR needs to rebuild trust. We've been talking about this, right? I had like a 3-point plan, and you're saying here they need to offer a quote sincere public apology. That's kind of bold, isn't it? So you think that NAR needs to apologize?
Yeah, probably a significant portion of the people we interviewed are brokers, some of whom obviously experienced what we experienced over the last year. To say like, hey, we experienced a set of changes to our industry because of lack of leadership is the message we heard. We were because we delayed, deferred, didn't approach leadership issues, didn't put qualified people in positions of authority, didn't do all of these things. We've now ended up in this situation that we're in right now, where we're having
Isn't like that just so opposite of NAR's vibe, though? I mean, to give a public apology. I mean, I think you're right. I think it has to be sincere, and there's a way of giving an apology instead of just the lip service. You can Google it, man.
Right.
Believe me, we're all married, right? I want to make sure I get this apology correct, right? So, but I agree with you guys on this. But I mean, what do you think the chances that they'll actually do something like that?
I don't know. No. Historically, low. Historically, low.
That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
Historically low.
There's worm and there's ground. That portion between the worm and the ground.
Historically low. At the same time, you can't deny the situation that the industry's found itself in.
Yeah.
Right. And if we don't take this moment to look in the mirror and reflect, if the leaders don't take this moment to do that at all levels and say, look, what could we do better? What did we get wrong? Where could we have led more?
Yeah.
The real issue is, and again, this is an opportunity report, but there is some messaging in here around lawsuits are not done. I know, Rob, you're tracking all this stuff. So are we. We're not done with this. People are going to look for holes in the way real estate is practiced, and we need to patch those holes. We need to make it so where the unrepresented buyer doesn't feel like they get screwed, right? If they come into a transaction, we need to make sure that the states where they allow, dual representation in whatever form it takes, with transaction brokerage, dual agency, whatever, like there's places where there's obvious potential conflicts, and you don't have to believe me about that. You can read this report. You can go look at the at E&O policy insurance and what it costs in different places and what kind of lawsuits get filed, and and draw the same conclusions and say, well, if the insurers are charging more because this is a state that allows that practice, there's a reason. It's because it's creating a bad consumer experience. So this is the time to look in the mirror and say, A, we're sorry for what happened and how we got to there. B, we're going to fix it, because that's part of an apology. Is you need to say what you're going to do differently next time. And what we need to do differently next time is we need to look down the road and say, where are we going to have problems in the future? Where are we going to have challenges that we need to get help right now? Where are we going to have consumer issues that we're aware of, and where some very clever attorney is going to figure out a way to come after brokers, agents, the industry itself, right? So that's the perspective on it. So the call for an apology is as much a call for looking forward, to say, look, we have to acknowledge what just happened, and we got to look forward and say what we're going to do different. Because if you don't do that with an apology, it's meaningless. It means you're going to do the same thing you did.
Yeah.
But coupling that with your call for the board of directors of NAR, they should all resign. Right? It feels like when you take that it's just obvious then, is everyone who's in a position of organized leadership, organized real estate leadership, should resign and then get rehired if that's what it is. Right. In other words, like this would be an area where
it needs to be restructured. You mentioned that too.
You talk about apology. Well, in places like Korea and Japan, the corporate culture is, if there's a scandal, there's something that went down, the leader resigns. They fall on the sword. It's like a seppuku. And then if the board or the shareholders say, you know what, it really wasn't your fault, this was something else, they get hired back. But the first thing they do is they resign. Let's start with Ikea, right? You weren't involved in this, but you were appointed by the previous regime who, to your point, have made bad decisions, have extracted bad leadership. Resign. Have the new board.
That's crazy, Rob. Come on, man.
Resign. You didn't hear me finish. Resign, and then have the new board that comes in as per the opportunity.
Yeah, we're going to go all samurai.
Have them rehire you if you're the right person.
Yeah, the opportunity report actually lays out a plan for this. I mean, it says what our recommendations are, and hey, the new CEO should be. There's a term of how long they should, and then we should decide whether or not that is to be extended. Like, there's actually a lightweight but fairly robust plan for what should happen in terms of installing new leadership and having a more empowered staff that's highly qualified, having a highly qualified ELT that. So there's the materials are in there, and we wrote about it in the trends report last year. Yep. We had a whole chapter on that, and I know, Rob, you've written about it many times. So it's not like we don't have ideas.
We have ideas. I don't know. I think I need a little bit more hope, and you
need to read the full opportunity report.
No, I've read the entire opportunity report. I'm just saying though, it's like I said, I'm sitting there like, yes, sir. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we've been around the block. Maybe it's just that case of like. I've been.
But again, this is sea change.
I hope so. That's why I kept asking, what has changed
on August 17th?
What makes you think this could happen now? Because we've been talking about this for 15 years.
The main pillar. I mean, with compensation going. I mean, the lawsuits. This is way different than what we've ever faced in the industry. That's what gives me a little bit more hope that things can actually change. Right. I mean, we've lost the CEO of NAR. We've lost. The main counsel of
three times.
I mean, it's
the president.
I think
president 3 times.
And I think there
is
something that's different than before, right? And again, I would applaud you guys too for putting this out here. I think I love the vibe. I love this goes in line with me. I mean, I tell Stefan this all the time. I mean, that almanac is on my desk. Right, you guys are putting out there and kind of doing the Lord's work.
No, this is a lot of, and again, I know a little bit of behind the scenes of like what it takes to put one of these things together. So, Jack, I know how much work it took, how much research, and congratulations, kudos. This is great. Like I said, I'm reading this going. This is not like a question or criticism, more like, boy, I hope it's different this time. Because the last 14 times it really wasn't. So I hope it's different this time.
The big difference, Rob, is what Greg said. It's we've just had a massive change to our industry, probably one of the biggest changes in the last 50, equivalent to buyer representation in the 90s, like that level of change, practice change, compensation practices, all of that. So we just had that. We just had massive turnover in terms of at the leadership level at NAR. Historic, not normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're putting a couple thousand copies of this in leaders' inboxes, well written, compiled, researched, and we're going to be making some noise about it. So it's like this is T360's contribution to try to make that happen. And everybody should get behind and push where they can push, because we do need to change how the industry has been run. And there's massive opportunities for those that engage with it. Those that want to lead the future, massive opportunities.
Where do they get this? Where do they get this report, Jack?
Yeah, go to theopportunityreport.com. It'll take you over to our real estate news site, and you can download it for free there. Sign up there. And we'll be doing some updates on this. I mean, you guys have asked some provocative questions. I have a whole slide deck about this report that I'm building that's kind of like more behind the scenes and more behind the thinking, and giving, as a matter of fact, giving credit to some of the thinking that different people in the industry, including you, Rob, about like, hey, many of these ideas, they're not new ideas.
No.
It's just now's the time to crystallize them into an action plan and to say, here's the action plan. Here, go now. Like, let's have a robust conversation now about all of this. All of it.
So let me ask you a final question as we let you leave. What is the difference between kind of adopting the opportunities that's laid out, from all of this? What's the difference between that and burning everything down and starting over?
Such a great Rob question.
Well, so that's a great question, by the way, but I think it is respecting what has been built that is good. And I think that we need to, as an industry, look at what has been built, look at what we have, and say, these are good things. There's many good things in this industry. There's many things we want to keep in this industry. And so we don't want to burn it all down. We want to go and say, these are the good things. We're going to keep the good things. These are the things that are problematic or troublesome. These are things that might be troublesome in the future. Those are the ones we need to fix. But we want to keep the good things. We want to keep the spirit of the industry. We want to keep the cooperation we do with each other. And
well, first of all, thank you for doing this. And personally, want to extend the invitation to you to participate in the upcoming Greg and Rob debate over a lot of things. So apparently, Greg and I have to have a lot of debates and argue. But, like taking your time is not the time to do this. So maybe you could come back when we're debating. And then,
sure. Yeah, that would be fine. Well, you guys clearly have some stuff to work out. I'd be happy to referee. So
Exactly. There's a couples counseling.
This would be so perfect for me, because I want somebody to go, Point Robertson. Another Point Robertson.
But he would be wrong.
Robertson, third point.
I know, but he would be wrong.
Robertson, point number 5. I mean, that's how that would go. Okay, you have a striped shirt on. Yeah. We would go back and forth, and you would say,
hilarious.
Advantage Robertson.
But any judge is giving you points would just be wrong. So,
Really fun hanging out with you guys and getting
really great. Thanks for doing this, Jack.
I look forward to it
again.
Really do.
Great job with the report. Please go get it. It's free, so you might as well check it out. It's a great read. So,
all right.
Thanks everyone for listening to us, and hope to see you all next time. Peace, y'all.
Bye.